15 minutes down the clock. Thank you.
That's what you were saying.
Okay, I'm showing 11 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to call to order our BASC meeting for this morning. Jennifer, could you please do a roll call?
Regent Mendoza,
Present?
Regent Johnston. Here. Regent Perisker.
Yes.
Just as a reminder, we are videotaping this meeting this morning. Are there any introductions for BASC this morning? Any new staff or?
Yeah, there is one. My apologies. Very pleased to introduce to BASC the new provost at Wichita State University, Monica Lounsbury. She's been on the job not quite 10 days, I understand, but is stepping in to replace Shirley Lefevre, who retired last month. She's kind of baptism by fire. She had a couple of items to present at COCO this morning, but we're very pleased to welcome Monica and look forward to working with her.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so our first item of business is approval of the minutes from the December 18th, 2024 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve or any questions or concerns?
So moved. I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moving on to, we have kind of a short agenda this morning, so we'll move on to board discussion agenda items, new program proposal for a Master's of Science in Medical Dosimetry. John Fritsch of Washburn University.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Beth O'Neill, and I will be stepping in for John Fritsch this morning as he's unable to participate in the meeting. Thank you for giving us time to present to you our proposal for a Master of Science in Medical Dosimetry. I would like to introduce Dr. Mark Coles, who is the chair of our Allied Health Department, who would be pleased to provide you with a brief summary of this proposal, as well as take any questions that you have.
Thanks, Beth. So this medical dosimetry program is a program to provide the ability for graduates to take licensure for medical dosimetry. Medical dosimetrists, for those of you who may not know, they're a member of the radiation oncology team who design radiation treatment plans for cancer patients. So they're designing treatment plans, working with the oncology doctors, providing quality assurance for radiation treatments in the use of oncology. This would be a Master in Science program. And as we look across the country, all of the master's programs are Masters in Science due to the mathematics and physics involved in calculating that radiation treatment.
Thank you, Dr. Coles. I will just briefly add that we are proposing this program to fulfill a nationwide shortage in medical dosimetrists. So this is a need, and there is not currently a program in Kansas or even in any of the surrounding states that offers medical dosimetry. So we are excited to hopefully be able to offer this to Kansans, as well as recruit people to attend a Kansas school at Washburn University through the online program that it is.
I also just add that the typical pathway towards this degree is through becoming a radiation therapist. And at Washburn, we do have a radiation therapy program within our Allied Health Department. So there is kind of that natural pathway that this would be the next step for our graduates in the radiation therapy program. for them to become medical dosimetrists. So it's kind of a, and the program itself is a similar type of program in the way that it's structured. It'll be a 4-semester program and fully online so that we can meet that nationwide shortage. And it's kind of that natural pathway that we think through our surveys that our graduates are already wanting to pursue. So this will give them an avenue to do that within Washburn.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
I do, sorry. I do have one quick question. This is Alicia Johnston. So they've already received a bachelor's in dosimetry or not necessarily, and are they already certified? Because I noticed there was a certification that you had to have for dosimetry. So I was just curious, the master's program, is that in addition to the certifications that they need, or?
No, this would be separate. So they do have to have a bachelor's degree, obviously, but they would not typically be already certified medical dosimetrists. So the typical, like I said, the radiation therapy would be the most typical pathway. At Washburn, that is a certificate. And we also have, along with that, a medical imaging bachelor's degree. And then our graduates would probably typically have that degree, but they would not have a medical dosimetry degree per se.
Do you have to have your master's to receive the certification?
There are some bachelor programs through our marketing analysis. The master's was preferred, and especially since our radiation therapy is so close to the bachelor's, they're typically having their bachelor's anyways. So it does set up the potential graduates well to have that master degree.
Thank you.
Jasper, did you have questions?
I think the second question was certification and difference between those two. So that's good, but I wanted to have a comment. We are constantly looking at programs and looking at program review. What was the process that Washburn took to decide that this is more important? Is it coming from the students or the faculty or the industry?
It was all three. So we were pursued by JCERT, which is the accrediting body for medical dosimetry. It also accredits our radiation therapy, and they reached out to us since we have a well-known radiation therapy program. So it was through the accrediting body, but then our market analysis research talked about the master's degree being a good way to go, but we also talked to our students. And our students, typically they do have their bachelor's degree, because the medical imaging bachelor's degree is basically 3 additional courses from our radiation therapy certificate. So if they were going to pursue medical dosimetry, they said that they would pursue it as a master's, and they would go elsewhere if ours wasn't a master's, since most of them will have their bachelor's degree. So our radiation therapy is a certificate, but many others around the country are bachelor's. So that'd be, if they're going to pursue another degree, they would rather it be bachelor's. We also talked with faculty here in medical dosimetry, medical dosimetrists here on faculty and within the community, and it was pretty much in agreement from all different stakeholders that master's would be the best way to go.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion to approve.
I approve.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much.
All right, next on our agenda, Provost Ficklemeyer, changes to KU qualified admissions.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the consideration. I have joining me today our Vice Provost for Enrollment Management, Nick Stevens, who will come online in a second. With this proposal, KU is seeking to do several things around admission. First of all, we're seeking to add a February 1 application deadline for admissions. And then secondly, we're revising 2 routes for guaranteed admissions. And the first one, and just again, to clarify, that application deadline is for guaranteed admission, right? So you're absolutely guaranteed admission to KU. In terms of thinking about the criteria for guaranteed admission, the two routes that we're revising, first one is tied to ACT score, and KU seeking to raise our ACT score for guaranteed admission from 21 to 24, and requiring such applicants to have a high school GPA of 2.5 instead of 2.0. And then secondly, we're looking at changing another route with the high school GPA and seeking to lower the high school GPA from 3.25 to 3.0. And we're doing that comparing ourselves to our peer institutions in the Midwest. And commonly our peers in the Midwest use a 3.0 for admission, and our own studies as well as other national ones indicate students with a 3.0 GPA are able to be successful at the bachelor's level. So Nick is available to come on and answer any specific questions you might have. Nick, anything you want to add?
No, I think you did a great job summarizing. Thank you, Provost.
So I have a question on ACT increase. Are we saying that we are mandating ACT then?
No, we don't. Nick, can you talk a little bit about how we use test scores? We don't mandate ACT or test scores, so you can talk a little bit about that from the background.
Correct. So if you think about it, there are essentially two pathways to be, again, just guaranteed admission to KU. The first is to have a 3.25 high school GPA, and we're proposing to lower that to a 3.0. But then the second is if you don't have a 3.25 or under the new proposal a 3.0, then you can go through a test pathway. And as long as you have under our new proposal a 2.5 and you score a 24 on the ACT, then you're guaranteed admission. So really the first pathway is through your high school GPA. And then if students don't have those GPA minimum criteria, then they can go through the test pathway. Again, this is just for guaranteed admission, though. We still have holistic review processes where we consider the entirety of a high school student's academic outcomes plus extracurricular, co-curricular, et cetera.
So my concern is, before I express my concern, I want to understand why are we doing this?
Nick, why are we doing this?
Why are we doing this?
Yes. So as all,
I know-
Good
I know-
admission for KU.
I know an answer. However,
Yes.
Nick has the detailed answer to that.
and it's all of you are aware, admission criteria across the country had to change with COVID-19, and testing sites shut down, et cetera. But we've had an opportunity to really evaluate the outcomes of students who were admitted under the new criteria that we did significantly reduce during COVID-19. And I think part of the challenge for KU, our goal is always, we want to be both accessible and excellent. And so as part of this balancing being an accessible institution and also having excellence, it's a friction point that we're constantly having to reevaluate and rebalance. So as we look at the outcomes of students who are in this, particularly the 2.0 to 2.49 high school GPA with a 21 through a 24 to 24 ACT, their second year retention rates are around 50%. So half of them drop out by sophomore year, and their graduation rates are about 25% for 6-year graduation rate. So only about a quarter of them graduate in 6 years. So when we compare that just to the entirety of our student population, it's significantly lower.
So another way to think about that is that when you put a test score in, and we know there are challenges with test scores anyway, if you have generally a low GPA and you have a test score, you get a one-day snapshot of a student on that test score. And then you have a GPA that indicates that they're performing.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
I
so it's
just
really
want-
adjusting
yeah.
that.
My question is, if we have about, looks like we have about 88% acceptance rate into KU. Are we trying to increase more acceptance for KU, or are we trying to find quality students so that we can show more, graduation rate increase? That's what I'm trying to get to, right?
Yeah. We're actually
What are we
trying to
trying to go
balance, we're
for?
trying to actually balance that.
Are we off balance right now?
Well, Nick, do you want to answer that? And then I will summarize that. So the
This is
question
pretty
is,
close to my heart because there are a lot of smart kids going away from Kansas.
right,
Because we have a huge acceptance rate.
right,
And I'm not saying that we are not attracting really smart, local kids, but they're looking at our acceptance scores and saying, you know what, I want to take my education somewhere else, even though we have quality education here.
Right.
And my fear is if we lower down from 3.25, guaranteed to 3, we are bringing in a lot more students who are not at that level, but at the same time, we are increasing a score that is arbitrary, right? So that's what I'm trying to understand is we have an acceptance rate of 88% already.
Right.
What are we trying to achieve from this?
mainly we want to make sure that those we accept, we actually retain and support. But Nick, say a little bit more, because it is about shaping success for students. So Nick, go ahead.
It is, and we are already admitting the majority, if not all, of the students who are between a 3.0 and a 3.24 anyway, in order to hit the class, the quantity goals that we have. At the same time, we are admitting a decent number of students, around 50, that are in that 2.0 to 2.49 with a 21 ACT range, and they just don't progress and graduate at the same rate. So it's kind of it's shaping that balance of we're admitting all of these students who can be academically successful in a 3.0 to 3.24 range. And so why not be transparent and clear that that's what guarantees admission to KU, but also increase our standards in the test pathway. And finally, we do have instructional and housing capacity constraints. So we do have to we have to shape the class to achieve those, to make sure that we have housing for all of our students.
I'm sure you guys did the research. Just, I don't want to attract more of 3.25, but not really, people with the higher both scores would probably not consider. Okay.
Right. Well,
That's
exactly.
the concern I have.
Right. Well,
yeah.
I'm sorry, didn't mean
Yeah,
to-
that's the concern I'm trying to express is a lot of our students who are do really good in school and have high GPA, ACT scores and SAT scores are fleeing our university.
Right.
And how do we retain them?
So actually, I do think, if I'm hearing you right, you're saying you want to make sure that our best academically prepared students stay in Kansas and that we are attracting those students. And I think that is a really important point, and that actually does play to this idea of how do we best shape the class that we have and be both accessible and excellent and prepare everybody, because and Jen's here, we are as concerned about who we let in, that we can retain them and support them and be attractive. So some of this goes to the fact that we've been doing a fair amount of work, and Nick could probably spend hours more than you want to spend here on the idea of, in order for us to be attractive, we have to be clear about those other institutions that students are choosing if they don't choose to stay in Kansas. And that's, I won't name other states that are around us, but you get who that is. We want to make sure that our guaranteed admissions, so that students know if I'm applying there, I'm going to get in, that our guaranteed admissions look just like those other places. And again, I'll say, I'm competing with MU, I'm competing with Arkansas, I'm competing with Iowa, right? You want to know that they hear immediately that they're getting in instead of that. And then secondly, that we scholarship as adequately. And so again, I cannot emphasize enough or appreciate enough what the board did last year in advocating for more aid. But those two kind of factors get those students who are thinking I might go somewhere else really clear right up front. I'm guaranteed to get into KU, and being guaranteed to get into KU, I might choose that, and I'm scholarshiped well so that I don't have to compete. So we really are trying to line up to those out-of-state peers that we have, because we see and we know that students who should be staying in state have chosen other places. And sometimes you just want to get away from mom and dad, sorry. But sometimes we just didn't have clarity of guarantee. And if you're that good that you're, thinking about those other places, you should know immediately that it's worth staying in Kansas. And so that's why I really want to emphasize the guaranteed aspect of that. And then guaranteeing that and making sure that we support you. Because the other thing that we talk a lot about internally at KU is what we call a sacred trust, is if we let students in and we say, we're going to help you have a job and a better life and all of those things, and we don't retain you and help you complete, and you took out loans, then you're worse off than you ever were. So it is that shaping and balance of guaranteeing your admission and making sure you know that immediately as soon as we can tell you that you're in, and then scholarshiping you to retain you. So Nick, did I do a good job there?
Yes, I do think when we look at all of we do an admitted student survey, and we look at students that matriculate and don't matriculate by GPA band. And I would say for the most part, for those highest achieving students, it is not an academic quality concern. It's a financial, I got a larger scholarship offer from another institution. And so I know that this is a challenging topic to discuss, but the reality is that those highest performing students from a revenue standpoint are the most expensive for us to attract because they require the largest scholarships. So part of what our work is in enrollment management and what our charge is that is balancing out students that have a variety of academic preparedness or outcomes so that we can ensure they can be retained, but also because that's what ultimately allows us to have a revenue portfolio that allows the institution to run.
I did have one quick question on guaranteed admission. What are the criteria for those students transferring, and has that criteria changed?
Nick,
No, the
do we have
transfer,
guaranteed required for transfer students?
yes, and it's the same. It's not changing. And in this context, this does relate just to freshmen, and we do require at least a 2.0 on any of their transfer coursework that they took in high school. So that isn't changing. And then our normal transfer pathway is the same as a 2.5, and that's not changing.
So for normal transfer, it needs to be a 2.5, but the ACT or the SAT doesn't come into play.
Correct, because they have college level coursework that we can use to evaluate their preparedness.
Thank you.
Did we evaluate keeping 3.25 and increasing ECT to 24? And how that changes the dynamics?
I'm sure he did. Nick, did you evaluate keeping the GPA and increasing?
Yes, but as I said, we're already admitting all of the 3.0 to 3.24s anyway, even without guaranteed admission. So it doesn't really change our portfolio of students by keeping it at a 3.25.
I'm trying to play on their psych here, right? What we do is a different thing, but how we market and attract those smart kids to stay
Right. Well,
is
but
what I'm
remember,
trying to say.
right, but remember for those students who have a 3 and guaranteed means, and this is why the date for telling you guaranteed admissions is guaranteed admission is if you apply by February 1st and you have a 3.0 and that GP or whatever that is, you immediately get a letter back from KU that says, you're here, you're in,
Right.
here's what you're gonna get.
But
And
there is no commitment from the student. That's
right,
not
no,
a
we're
agreement.
telling them, we want you be here. While if we keep it at 3.24 and we really want those 3.0 students or that gap in there, and we're saying, hey, you gotta wait and hear from us because you're 3.0 or 3.1, but MU's already told them, you're 3.0, you're in, come here, here's what we're gonna give you. then we've already lost them because they say, why does Missouri value me more than Kansas values me? And so that's the key, because the guaranteed admission says you're here, you know it right now, and you know what we're doing. And then we do shape the class around that, but those people do have to wait on a holistic admissions and get some news from us. And so we just don't want that 3.1
Right.
student to say, golly, the state of Missouri values me more than the state of Kansas does, or KU does. So that's why that bit is lower. And I will also say, I'm sorry, Nick, you were going to say something there.
I was just going to say, in this realm, like from a marketing standpoint, consumer perception of quality is not based on admission criteria. Frankly, it's mostly based on price. So in this realm, like
Right,
quality is equated to high cost. So if you give them if it's a $20,000 sticker price and you give them a $10,000 scholarship, then they see that as, I'm going to a very high quality institution for a reasonable price. And it has really nothing to do with the admission criteria. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
I guess my perspective on this is a little bit different. Going back to a point that you made, Provost, you talked about the ACT as a snapshot one time. Anything could be happening that day to cause a student to not score as high as they could possibly on another day, right? And you guys all know already that I work in K-12 education, and I know how critical those high school years are and how much brain development is still going on during those years. I have two daughters that have gone through high school, 25 and 19. The 19-year-old is not the same person today that she was her freshman year. So it's very possible that, and it actually did happen, she did not do well academically her freshman year. But by the time she graduated, she was doing better. And so when we look at GPAs, she may have had a lower GPA because of that freshman year. And I think also about, I work with English learners. And if they come in middle school and they're still learning the language, their freshman year, that GPA may not be as solid as it could be because they're still learning the language. So for me, I think this is a good thing. As Nick said, accessible and excellent. I think they're going to get an excellent education and it's going to be accessible for more students. And so for me, this is a positive move, and I appreciate the work that's been done on this.
Thank you very much. That does exactly, I think, encapsulate what we're trying to do.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thoughts? I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you so much.
All right, our next order of business, we have the academic year 2025 performance report and rubric, and Sam's going to present to us.
Thank you. So the report template starts on page 13 of your agendas. The rubric starts on page 19. Sorry about that. And just as a reminder, or to let the new regent know, last year we did ask this body to approve the rubric because that is the scoring for the performance report. And so I would ask that you guys consider that. I think it's probably reasonable if you would like more time, we could always revisit this again at the virtual meeting in a couple of weeks too. But I would like to, Jen's already got it up on the screen. I was just going to go through the report itself and just basically share with you how many points each component is worth, if that works. So we'll start with item 1 on page 13. And the first thing that we're asking for is for institutions to show us at least one section of each Gateway math course of the 3. Applying to degrees on campus for fall of 25, a link showing that at least one section of each of those 3 courses is being offered. 1 or 2 of these courses might be newish or new to any given institution. Most of the institutions do offer all 3, but not all of them. So we want to see that they're committed to offering each Math Pathways course. That is going to be worth 5 points or none. So basically they do it or they don't, right? The next part of that is showing the same thing for spring of 2026. Since it's further out into the future, it's understandable if a link isn't workable. Someone at the last meeting asked if a screenshot showing their offering would work. We said, yes, just some kind of proof that you're doing this. So again, that's 5 points or 0 points. If we go down to section B, the plan to implement Math Pathways full scale by AY 27 or fall of 2026. We're asking if all internal approvals are in place to integrate the Gateway Math course into each degree program on campus. And if not, please explain what is left to do. That one's going to be worth 5 or 2.5 points or 0. I guess that's an option. Hopefully it's not going to happen though. And then below that is we're asking for the number of course sections and the number of students per section estimated to be taught in each of those 3 Gateway Math courses when it's full scale by fall of 2026. That portion is worth 5 points total. If a component is missing, they might get half points for it. If they don't do it, no points. So going on to the next page, the second component is broken down into 4 pieces again. And here we're asking about the co-requisite math support dev ed sections for each of the 3 Gateway Math courses. And a link showing that they're offering these. Again, it's all or nothing, so 5 or 0 points for that. Same thing for the spring semester, 5 or 0 points for that. And then down to section B, we're asking for the plan to implement the co-rec math support dev ed full scale by fall of 26. If the plan is to implement co-rec dev ed for all 3 a year early, or if they plan to continue to offer pre-rec dev ed for that last year that they can and still get funding for the 2 years. And so that, you can see the questions that we asked there. That one's going to be worth 5 or 2.5 or 0. And the next portion, again, we're asking for the number of sections and the estimated number of students per section when it's full scale, 5 points, half points, or 0 on that one. So then we move on to the third component, and this we're asking about the co-rec dev ed for English Comp 1. And it's much like the previous sections where we're asking for a link showing that they're going to offer at least 1 section of co-rec English support dev ed for fall of 25, for spring of 26, same point structure there. Section B, the plan to implement the co-rec English support dev ed full scale. Are you planning on implementing it, fully implementing a year early, or do you plan to continue to offer pre-rec for this final year during AY 26? Again, the point breakdown is you get the full 5. If you don't do all of it, we could see you awarding half the points for that particular component or none. And then the fourth piece on item number 3 is, again, we're asking for an estimate, the number of co-requisite support sections for English Comp 1, estimated number of students in it when the initiative is fully scaled by fall of 26. Same point breakdown as previous sections for that one. The fourth item is the plan to implement the course placement measures for the soft launch that's required by fall of 25, and full scale is required by fall of 26. So the first piece is, what are the institutional measures you plan to use alongside the approved system-wide placement measures for fall of 25, spring of 26 for English Comp 1? And the point breakdown there is 5 points or 2.5 or 0. And then the plan, asking about, do you plan to adopt the approved system-wide measures and the institutional measures above full scale for this coming year, a year early, which is optional, or do you plan to continue to place any remaining students using the placement measures you used prior to this coming year? We're just asking what the plan is, because I think some institutions will want to implement full scale by fall of 25, but we don't know that unless we ask and they tell us. So this is just basically, what is your plan for the next year regarding the course placement measures? And again, they can get 5 points, half the points for that, or none. Then item B on the next page is, we ask about the plan to implement the system-wide math course placement measures. Same kind of idea. What are the institutional measures you're planning to use alongside the approved system-wide measures? And do you plan to adopt these full scale a year early, or are you going to just do the soft launch? And again, both of those pieces are worth 5 points each. Half points could be awarded depending on the information provided or none. The final piece is the academic degree maps. And you might remember that the degree maps were of course due this past year. Basque decided to drop the requirement for the general education coding on that piece. The degree maps, the bare minimum was give us a semester by semester plan and make sure they're all accessible on one link on your website. And everybody did that. So this year we're asking them to add that general education coding if they didn't already. And a lot of them already have. But for those who didn't, we're asking them to do that additional step. And that one could be 20 or 10 points if they miss something, or none if they don't do it at all. So that's the suggested point breakdown, and you can see that in the rubric that follows the report template. Because we did ask this body to look at and approve the rubric last year, we would ask the same thing this year.
Thank you, Sam. Any questions or comments?
We need to take a decision.
We can move it to the next meeting if we want to. We want
It's a
more
lot to
time
digest.
look over it.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, appreciate it.
Sam, can you remind me, was it board staff that kind of worked on revising the rubric, or were there other individuals involved?
It was board staff. We just looked at we started with the performance agreements. We created the report templates based on these agreements, which basically just fleshes out the agreement a little bit more. And then we just kind of worked on the point breakdown from there.
Can I reach out to you if I have any questions?
Absolutely.
I remember quite a bit of discussion on this, especially with the degree maps. Do the provosts have any questions or thoughts on the rubric the way it is? No. All right, I think we'll go ahead and move it to the next agenda or the next meeting, just to make sure we have adequate time to go through all the comments. And then if any questions arise, please feel free to bring them to the next meeting.
You need a motion to table it.
Do I?
Do you? Do we need a mo-
Okay. I would entertain a motion
think
to
we probably
table it
do.
to the next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right. Sometimes it feels like my first rodeo. So going on to academic affairs updates, do we have any updates from the academic affairs team?
I just might mention, you are all aware that we have formed a work group and are to develop the first 15 concurrent enrollment courses. We've met once. We have a meeting scheduled, the work group, next Tuesday, and another meeting scheduled for February 6th. So we'll have updates for you in February on progress on our work. We've also set a landing page on our homepage for various materials related to the first 15, and it's under on the menu bar on the left. The first link is concurrent enrollment agreements. Is that correct?
It's under the dual credit cooperative agreements. It's
Dual
not
credit
live yet,
cooperative.
But it will be later in the week.
Yeah.
I have a general question. Chair Mendoza, I may not be able to attend next month's event, meeting. How does that work if one of the region is not present on the approvals and all that?
You get a very large demerit.
I think if we have 2 out of the 3, we'll still have a quorum, right?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That was a good question.
Dr. Monholland, was that the only update you had? Do you have any others, or?
I believe so. That's the beauty of the January meeting.
Yeah.
Not much has happened between December middle of
Good.
December and the middle of January, so
A lot of weather happened,
we'll
a
make-
lot of academics, right?
we'll make up for it. In
I'm
the
sure we
coming-
will.
No
coming
shoveling.
months, so.
Okay, is there anything else to come before the committee this morning? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Well.
The recording has stopped.
Start our meeting early.